as a whole, then micro-learning, some principles of design when we talk about micro content, how do we do micro content design? And lastly, what is a platform like? And I will just give you an example, which is Thinkific. What does a platform looks like? And what kind of features do we look out for in platforms? They range from a mere couple of $100 a month to perhaps a few $1,000s a month. There's a lot of different platforms in the marketplace right now. And of course, a world like big corporations like Walmart with a lot of staff, or Amazon, they will use the very high-end ones. And I will tell you what's the difference. So if you look at e-learning as a terminology, right? Let's start with some terms. E-learning is online learning, basically. And if you look at online learning, in education, we will always split them as asynchronous and synchronous. And what do we mean by these two different terms? By synchronous is what I'm doing right now. I'm here, I am the facilitator, and I'm talking to you. And so it's synchronous because I'm here with you, right? And the conference tool is a Zoom, and it's quite, as you can see my face and I can see your response. I can invite you to put in chat, what have you learned, for example, recently online, be it on a YouTube, how to cook a dish. You can do that, and that's synchronous. You can build rapport easily. On the other hand, if you look at asynchronous, it's really self-learning online. If we look at the pure definition of async, there is no one, because you are interacting with what we call objects, learning objects on a system or a platform. So there's no live online sessions like that. By definition, that's what it means. What do we mean by scaffolding? In learning, right? Scaffold is to build some structure to help a person progress. And so in asynchronous, the structure is provided by the platform. So all good platforms will allow you to create some form of structure. So you guide them through content 1, content 2, content 3. So you can categorize and modularize your content into units. That's typical of LMS. If you ask me, 100% asynchronous, without any face-to-face or online Zoom sessions that's synchronous, it can be quite, it can be sometimes missing some aspects, such as the social aspects, as well as peer learning aspects. So this is something to think about, like when you start, if you want to start your college online, how do you have a blend? Are there occasions for them to come together, or perhaps have synchronous sessions now and then? Discussion boards. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What is a blended approach look like? Because even with our driver partners, we have a blended approach. They learn a lot of things online, but they do have community gatherings where they can learn from peers and testimonies from success, about success, how to be a successful partner. So they learn all that through these community gatherings that they have. So that's quite important to facilitate as well, sharing and learning. So the benefits of micro-learning very much for the learners, it's because it's small chunks, so you can learn on the go. And because it's small chunks, sometimes it's easier to digest, and you can revisit the content again when you are unsure. You can always go back to the platform and revisit the content. Whereas classroom, we cannot, right? We just can't go back and revisit. It's only the notes. So the good thing about recording, like a video recording, you can always watch it again and again. For creators, the content creators, this means it's flexible. Today, there are a lot of tools to help create the content. I won't touch on that for today, but there are easy tools like Canva that allow you to create quick content. So in marketing, they are using easy tools like that to create animation videos to sell something. Maybe I'm a plumber, but I want to teach you some basic skills about plumbing for your home use. After that, you may call me when you have more difficult issues at home. So there's a lot of what we call micro entrepreneurs who have started, and they have created a lot of videos to sell themselves and sell their own services. I mean, in Singapore, at least we see quite a lot of that. It's very scalable, and meaning that you can reach a lot of people, like easily 1 million in a year. This is what I want to show you an example that I'm doing learning, but I'm sure all of you had some chance to learn something online. Maybe just a show of hands. Have you taken an online course before? Who has taken an online course before? Okay, all have, right? So you're not new to this, you are familiar with this. So this is something that I wanted to show you. That's from Meta. They own, it's a new name for Facebook. I'll just hop off to their platform in Coursera. And I would like to show you a little bit so that you understand what I mean when everything is asynchronous. I'm assuming that, I'm sure some of you already have prior knowledge about microlearning, but I'm assuming that I'm starting from scratch. So this is how they would structure, and the way they have structure. Meta, I thought was the way they structure this course that I'm taking, I feel that it's well structured. Of course, not every course provider was structured by content, but they pace us and they actually keep pushing nudges for us to learn. So it's a 4-week content, and they are very clear that it is achievable every week. If you look at it, what will you be learning? So I have started, and it's pretty achievable. And so the first week is nothing much, but the second week they dive into a lot of, this is technical knowledge. It's okay, just ignore the content, but I'm just showing you how they do this. They have videos. And usually they use a video. And in their platform, they have what we call, this is called a transcript, which is very common, whereby in a video, if you don't want to, you're not auditory, you just want to read, you can skip and do this. So that's a good thing. And they allow me to highlight certain parts.
Each HTML element consists of an opening
and save
tag
my notes
enclosed in angle brackets.
So that's quite a good feature in Coursera. This is their own in-house LMS, is their own platform. So they have done quite a good design, I think, in general. Though the words are very small, I think you can't see the words. But the idea is that this is what micro content is like. And if you look at every page that they have designed, this is about a 5 to 10 minutes read. And then I can go on when I'm comfortable, and then I will move on to the next item, right? So they use a lot of videos, a lot of interactions and quizzes embedded in videos. So if you look at quizzes embedded in videos, these are like good checkpoints to ensure that people are watching the videos, but it's nice to have, but it's not critical. So that's a flavor of what a platform looks like with e-learning. More importantly, I think this, if you ask me, is very critical. If you are learning something online and on an asynchronous mode, what are the things that you really want to look out for to ensure that the self-directed learning takes place? People are motivated to do this. And from my practical experience, I learned that the social aspects, they know their friends are on this. They have a group that they belong to. Very often, like I take a course like what you saw on Meta, I don't belong to any group. They are like people from all over the world. And I felt that sometimes doesn't give me that motivation. I took another course, which is with MIT, a very short course. And what MIT did was they enrolled me into a class. And then they got me to really get to know my classmates from all over the world. And we have classrooms, discussion boards. So that was very helpful in a sense where it addresses the social aspects that I know. Oh, people from Hong Kong. I even know people from Singapore taking the same course. And I felt that that's something that is good when we want to engage the learners. The other one will be interaction. There must be interaction through digital tools that we build into the platform. There are many, many tools today. If you look at Google, just good old Google Drive, right, with Google Word document, where many people can collaborate online just to fill in content, that's an example of interaction. But there are many other more sophisticated ones, like easy to use, that you can embed in the learning management system, and you can just get people to post all their feedback. Like Padlet is an easy way where you just post your comments and you can see everyone's comments in a glance. Number 3 is help. If they are stuck with something, who can they approach for help? Is there a key facilitator that they can ask questions and they can park questions? Or is it peer learning? They can approach someone, they have a buddy. So the idea about peer learning, this is supported through discussions or a project that they do together, even though they are doing online learning, but they can always meet on Zoom to do a mini project, and that's where they learn from each other and they explore concepts together. For example, if you're teaching how to do outreach to a community, and they can actually take this online and offline and plan, and then to reach a community, what must I do? And then they can go for practical things within their community. You can try out certain conversation liners. I'm just imagining this, I'm not the expert, but yes, what I'm trying to say is that while you have asynchronous learning, you can plan for them to have some offline learning and learn from each other in small groups. So it adds the depth to the asynchronous mode, and it's more interesting. Number 5, now it's nudging is my own, but gamification is common. In a lot of platforms, they encourage gamification, which is like awarding points. Okay, so maybe like Nazal, oh, she's like, wow, she learns a lot. For those programs where you can learn at your own pace and she's like far ahead, she gets a lot of points. So on the leaderboard, like all of us are in the same classroom. Nazal will be at the top of the leaderboard. So that's the competitiveness of it. My personal opinion, I know it works, but it creates a very competitive culture. And when we look at this in my previous workplace, we are careful because we want learning to be real, to be authentic, that people want to learn. They want to hear God's word, right? It must be real, not because I give them a badge or a reward or like a prize. So even for partners that we train, we want them to cultivate that genuine thirst for knowledge, and we hold back the gamification because we have a lot of gamification tools in our pocket, but we hold back and we wanted to see what happens. We let them learn without any gimmicks, and I think people can learn with nudging. So what is nudging? Sorry, I'm giving you a lot of concepts. Is it so far okay? Okay, Gerard's okay. Okay. Nudging is something that usually people use in marketing, sales, financial sector to nudge you to buy insurance. What do? It stems from the behavioral economics or behavioral science, and they study human behavior. So I'm just going to introduce you to someone. I follow a lot of nudging theory, and I use nudging a lot in my previous place to achieve that number of people to go on board the platform to learn. So it was introduced in 2008, right? Richard Taylor. And in recent years, he helped to do a lot of real projects. For example, encouraging people to pay taxes. It's so hard, but nudging is like not so authoritative, but it's subtle and gentle. And because of the work that he has contributed, he actually won a Nobel Prize in 2017. So I'm just going to introduce it to just a very brief, and you can read up on nudging.
Let's begin with a simple fact.
Can you hear?
People make inconsistent decisions. That's the way it is. What was initially mere intuition has since been validated by over 40 years academic research on the decision-making process. The name of this revolutionary theory is behavioral economics, whose major message, as supported by Nobel Prize Award winner Daniel Kahneman, overthrows the paradigm of traditional economics.
Hello, I'm behavioral economics, and I'm standard economics.
Knowledge of the decision was developed by Professor Cass Sunstein.
I'm going to skip to Richard Taylor because his concept is a branch of behavioral economics. So I'm just going to skip. I can share the video with you and you can watch it in detail.
Or effective action to modify behavior as we wish. The idea of nudge was developed by Professor Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler in 2008 in their book entitled Nudge. Nudge is a system of gentle encouragements based on advanced knowledge of the decision-making process. The benefits of nudge: remarkable power to change behaviors through cost-effective actions. Examples? How can we encourage households to reduce their energy consumption? Simply by amending a letter informing them about their energy use, adding a comparison with their neighbor's energy use. If your energy use is lower, you are congratulated. It's great, with two smiling. If this is not the case, you are sent hints and tips to easily improve. By using social norm drivers, the O-Power team has saved some $250 million, and all without spending a dollar. So nudge can be used to save the planet. Another example, this time from the UK healthcare sector. How to encourage people to take part in the National Organ Donor Program through the addition of a simple phrase on the government's official website. The phrase in question? Each day, thousands of people who see this page decide to register. Once more, social standards pressure worked its magic, with the test showing potential for
So you can see, right? This is what we call social norms to encourage people to move, but applied to your context might be a little bit different, but they are looking at how to mobilize mass and encourage the mass to join. So they use a little bit like, oh, others have done this, or the average for bills is this, and what is yours? Just a minute. I think I want to let you hear from the man himself. It's a very short video.
You know, Evon, in the church, the young people put up a sign because now we have so many people using the facility from outside. And so they put a sign on the door that said 98% or 96% of the users switch off the lights and the aircon. and it, you know, I don't know if it works. They just put it up, but I was thinking, oh, wow, what a wonderful, gentle way of reminding us.
Because that's a more subtle than saying off the lights when you leave, right? So peer, we call it subtle peer pressure, sometimes helps. That's what it means. And I wanted to show you the video. I think I downloaded the incorrect video, but this is the correct video, which I hope I'd like you to hear, but just give me a minute to retrieve it. I have to send through to you. I don't have it, but I have to send through to you. So any questions on that? Clear? So how does this impact learners, right? If we nudge them.
Let's begin with a simple fact.
Look at this, right? It could be a statement like a sign, or it could be a personal message. Depends on how you want to do it. I give you some examples here. For example, we do not want them to be motivated by monetary rewards, but sometimes a little bit of teaser like this. Be the first 10 to complete this content and get a fuel discount voucher. If you think about it, we have hundreds out there, but we're just giving 10. And for the fun of it, when we tested this out, the green box, we saw people just come in because they may take their time to learn. But when we posted this, be the first 10 to win this, they know that they are not going to get, but they just try. And you'll see within the first week, we get increased numbers who come. So it works. The blue box here, 10,000 have completed this to help themselves get ready for parenting. Click to start. It's a nudge, an example of a nudge. And then you have the orange one, which we automated in our system to congratulate those when they are 50% through a very long, for example, 6 months curriculum. After onboarding, they have a 6 months curriculum, and at midpoint, we want to give them a cheer, right? So it's like, congrats, you have completed 50% and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How many people have gone to complete 100%? And that's to move people along without being very harsh, or it's a very natural way to do this. So learner engagement.
You know, Evon, if I could just say, when we're driving on the highway to go up to KL or Penang, we like to see the progress. Sometimes that's all we can see is just the progress because there's nothing else to see on the highway. And it's nice to count down to when we can reach Malacca, or when is this, when are we getting there? Are we there yet?
Yes, yes. It's so much, right? In all the user design, or even what you are saying, like I go on Google Maps sometimes, and they will say 20 minutes, right? Then I will see that, oh, I have, 5 more minutes to reach there. I feel happy, right? So these are user design, like you said, that psychologically we want to know. It's like, oh, how long more? How long more? So that's, yeah, thanks for that illustration. So that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And it can be in your user design, in your curriculum design. You can have a party midpoint. You can have a gathering to celebrate. These are all natural nudges. We're just not aware that actually it has a psychological impact. In the academic literature, they have proven that it does help to nudge. Yeah? So I'm just going to dive in now. That was a crash course on e-learning. And this is the second one that we're going to dive in on design for micro-learning purpose, some key principles. There are a lot of literature out there that actually argues about what is human attention span like. Microsoft did a study and they say it was 8 seconds, but that also attracted a lot of controversial comments from others. 8 seconds is shorter than a goldfish, apparently. So that was a bit controversial. In reality, it's very hard to say, because I think that another school of thought is when you put effort, you really want to do this, it's very intentional, your attention span will increase. But when we are doing nothing and watching TikTok videos, of course, my attention span will probably be just 8 seconds. If it doesn't engage me, I move on to the next TikTok video. I don't watch TikTok, but I'm looking at my son's behavior. But if he intends to study, he will have to settle down, prepare his mind, and he will say that I need to go into hyperdrive. When he's in hyperdrive, the attention span is very high. It's not 8 seconds. So there's a lot of misleading articles because they want to promote micro-learning. They will say that attention span is 8 seconds. So your content must be X number of seconds. We did a lot of studies on this by monitoring how long people watch our content, because we can monitor. And we also do a lot of surveys on the ground and ask them, how long do you think an ideal video will be? There are a lot of different thoughts. In fact, some even think that we can go as long as 10 minutes. They have no problem if it excites them. So I would say that the rule of thumb is 8 seconds or 10 seconds, but generally, as a trend, the younger generation, the attention span is quite short. If it's not engaging or interesting, they switch off quite easily. But the young generation is found to have very, very good multitasking ability. They can do many things at one go, especially in the digital space. They may have like 4 or 5 tabs to 10 tabs open, and they are like going one to the other, one to the other. They can do that very easily. So it's a new skill. The brain can adapt, and then they move into this, right? So I'm looking at it more from my ground experience. We really did research and we don't have an answer. What is the best length for a video? Working memory. This is just definitions, yeah? So short-term memory with the ability to use, manipulate, apply. This is what we call a working memory. That means we can hold it there for a while. For example, when we are doing math, when we look at a math question, we can recall and we hold it there and we manipulate and then we get an answer. So that's like a working memory. When we are learning in micro-learning, this is the norm. We usually teach them. If you look at micro-learning as information sharing, it's about 7 to 8 items at one go, because the working memory cannot hold beyond that. If the number of key learning points we want to teach exceeds 10, it gets quite difficult. I may not recall most of it after the session if I don't repeat the content. But if you can repeat the content again and again, you can go longer, but you need repetition to help them to remember. So I think most experts recommend 7 to 8. I think it's fair. Most of the videos I've produced before, it hovers around 5 to 8 key learning points. And when I say key learning points, For example, if you say, how do I maintain my car? So I will then group the information into perhaps 8 points. I must remember, for example, to go for, the tire. I need to pump air into the tire is an example of 1 key learning point. It's that basic, right? You roughly have to group and break down. And then the working memory, when looking at a content of 10 minutes with 8 items, is easy for them to handle. When it goes into the long-term memory, I don't have a lot of time, so I won't dwell too much. Long-term memory is anything that we can recall. After 30 seconds, it has gone into the long-term memory. Sometimes we write it down, we repeat through repetition. If we repeat 3 times, usually it's helpful to go into long-term memory. So I was a tertiary teacher or lecturer before, and we always tell the students, study skills, please do your homework is 1 time, go back and revise another time before exam, another 2 times. Definitely you can do your exams well, because it will be in your long-term memory and you will not forget. The problem is a lot of the students, they can understand perfectly well, but they don't perform well in exam because it's not in the long-term memory, and the memory kind of decay over time, right? And then when it comes to the real exams, they do last minute study, and again, that doesn't go into long-term memory. They are just going through the motion and they fail their exams. So that's, as a teacher, we always encourage tactics to go help them learn in their, get the thing into the long-term memory. So with asynchronous, one of the skills to do this is really to help them remember by repeating, or certain modules will reinforce certain concepts and they build upon each other, which I share a little bit more. And our memory has explicit memory and implicit. For example, singing. You don't have to really recall how to sing. Effortlessly, you remember. It's inside you. Sensory memories is also very interesting. Like, how many of you can describe? It's hard to say it explicitly, but how many of you can describe the smell of fresh bread? Can you? Can you describe what words will you use? But if I ask you, do you remember if you smell fresh bread in the oven, will you recognize it?
Aroma.
Yeah? You may, right? You may recognize that smell. So that's the difference. In our memory, we actually remember. Sometimes it's not very explicit. It's just there, sensory as well.
I think also, Evon, this comes into application when we are looking at theology, because, for example, Surjit recently, Dr. Surjit in India sent me a very, I would say, very important document in Bible doctrines, where there were, I think, maybe 15 to 20 large chunks of what every student should know. I think traditionally in an actual in-person classroom, we would be given the textbook to read, and then we would have many other classes as well, not just Bible doctrine. So the overall effect over several weeks is that you would have to, on your own time, read the textbook. And at the same time, there's a lot of repetition over several weeks and indeed months and indeed years, because there are cycles of first year, second year, third year, fourth year. So I think this topic is paramount, because we may not want to try to do too much in one go. And yet there's limitations in terms of the way in which the classes would be structured online as opposed to in person. So that's just my thought there about explicit and implicit memory. It's almost impossible to digest Bible doctrines all in one go anyway. So we might as well not try. maybe we can spread it across our whole spectrum of different classes, different aspects of Bible doctrine, instead of trying to cram it all in one go. Yeah.
Thanks for the sharing on the chunking. I think the chunking is really what is quite powerful to help people to recall, right? We can read the textbook, but when we see a summarized document with all the chunks, I will put down my notes next to it. So that's very helpful for a learner. If you look at this, this is just, I think a lot of you may also have heard of the forgetting curve. Over time, the biggest drop is right after. If we don't repeat it or reinforce it, it will be forgotten. And this is why in asynchronous micro-learning design, we will always have a quiz after. For example, if you do a topic, we have a mini quiz. The quiz is not to test people. The quiz is a recall tool. That's what I've learned, to help people to remember. Because if you see the behavior of the partners we train, after the video, they will do a quiz, and a lot of time they actually forgot what is the answer and they get it wrong. Then they go back to the video and we allow them to do the quiz multiple times. Through answering the quiz multiple times, they finally get all correct, right? And that's what we want. So we make it compulsory for them to get the right answers, for example, and they can have multiple tries. So the idea here is really to gather feedback about their learning. We call that the formative feedback, to get some feedback about their learning. And one of the quickest way is the quiz. Otherwise, if we don't reinforce through a quiz, chances are it may be forgotten. But the good thing about classroom training in comparison is the teacher always recap. Like next week, first week I teach something. In the second week, I will recap, right? And I can recap and make everybody go through that recap with me before I talk about week 2's topic. But online mode is different. There is no teacher there to say, let's recap. But you can also design in such a way, maybe like after 4 or 5 chapters, and you want to have a recap session where they come together and talk about it to reinforce the key takeaways. That's an idea. I'm just thinking, because theology, I think, can be hard and heavy, right? So if you have discussions, facilitated discussions, that would be nice for them to unpack. And if they have questions, that they can get help there. So one of the key thing about learner engagement is help. So the design needs to be like thought through, like should we infuse some of these quizzes at what stage, or maybe not all are quizzes. It could be like a few chapters down the road, they have a face-to-face gathering where they can talk through with a facilitator. So these are things that I want to bring out and call out, so that when you design, you can have an idea how to do this, or why we are doing this, right? Why we have a quiz. So if you look at this slide here, how do we overcome the memory problem? Is to give it a meaning. Sometimes that's help. If you're remembering random things, right, it doesn't help. It's hard. So by giving them some meaning, sometimes it's the presentation, like chunking. So that's what you mentioned earlier. How you feel actually affects how well you remember. So if you have very positive feelings and affections, you tend to remember better. And then the last one, repetition and reinforcement. So at some points, we will always repeat content when necessary for the important things that frames the whole, maybe 5 chapters, there's a frame. So we will always say that, okay, let's recap briefly, and then we move on to the next series.
I think, Evon, also from a didactic point of view, as we are not only students ourselves, but we are also stakeholders in the future of the college. As we were, I was thinking about this even during the COVID period. What is the one way we can present all these 21 tasks or modules as one idea, a single idea, a single focus? And the thought came to me about the menorah the Jewish lampstand, the candelabra in the tabernacle of Moses. It has seven branches in the typical menorah, not the Hanukkah one, but the standard one. And these branches, each of the seven have three sort of nodules. I don't know what to call them, but nodes, and of course, 7 times 3 is 21. So we could actually depict graphically, I don't know how we're going to do it, but imagine a 7-branch menorah. Each branch has 3 nodes, and each node comprises of one of the modules. And it was so uncanny, Evon. Just recently, they sent me an email saying that you can now make community groups if you upgrade to the Pro Plan or the Pro Growth and so on and so forth. And guess what? How many communities we are able to make? And they said the maximum community you can make is 21. And I said, oh my goodness, this is how uncanny that the software can support all 21 of our modules with 21 different communities. As you say, the important thing is also social interaction, getting to know and creating friends across time zones and who didn't previously know each other.
Yes.
And I think that is something so uncanny that, if we can have a single idea like the lampstand, the menorah, so-called menorah, and then, fit all 21 and then create these 21 I'm calling it T21, right? T21 communities. And each community could be commandeered by different senior students or stakeholders, or indeed, for the centralized concept anyway. So thanks for bringing up the issue about memory and how we can retain over 3 years, even the basic course structure, I think is going to be important. Thanks for that.
Okay, thanks for the sharing. I think the idea about community leaders, because in order for a community to be vocal and share with each other, then there needs to be a lead somehow that facilitates and encourage them along the way. So if you have that in mind, that's something interesting. We can talk about it further. If you look at Facebook, they have so many community leaders, right? But that's not in Christian work that they do, but they do a lot of outreach as well to different communities. We also had previous workplace, our partners, we have a lot of community leaders, and like one of them would be reaching out to a few hundreds in their own zone. Because if you look at like just Philippines, there are many rural areas and different areas. So we have community leaders in a lot of these areas, and they gather them to have offline activity too. And just a quick one about design. If you look at these things, right, you can try. I can give you 10 seconds. You can try to take down and see if you remember all of these. It's hard, yeah? 10 seconds. How many can you remember? Maybe some of you have amazing memory because you are well trained.
1. Time's up.
Can you remember if I were to say, what do you recall?
No way.
At least one thing you can recall, right? It will be a normal thing. Like Pauline, what do you recall? 1 thing, 2 things?
The balloons, the wrapper, the hook that's like a bag strap. Something at the end.
I remember things that are not even there.
How about the rest? Anyone remember something else that you saw? Hard, isn't it? The idea is that visual organization and visual aids, right? It helps with chunking. So when we talk about chunking, is to give it a meaning. And when you give it a meaning, even things like numbers is very subtle in your design when you create slides or things like that. Even if the numbering looks messy, like this, it's very hard to retain the info because some of us are visual learners. And if we are visual learners, our memory can hold a snapshot. Like for me, I will be able to have a snapshot of this. But some people needs meaning. Then they will say, okay, toys. I have this number 1 kiddie pink set, eggs, balloon, and fishing rod. 1, 2, 3, 4. Toys. When I say that, I can remember because that's meaning, my favorite things. So this part has got to do with chunking, but with visualization aids. It helps and reorganize it in a way. And I'm sure all of you do this actually in your daily teaching and all that. It's just that when we look at the why, then there is a reason why. It's really because to help ourselves in the memory space, to hold it there. The working memory has limitations. So how we help our working memory is through these various ways. So teachers have always done this. They will group similarities together so that it's easier for people to remember. I need to pack these parts of the speech, noun, verbs, adjectives, right? So there's meaning when I say, okay, noun is a person or a thing. And then you will say, oh, okay, cow, monkeys. So it's easy, there's meaning. Otherwise, it'll be very random. How do we remember so many English words in a way? And then visualization is how you present the information. And that's what I was trying to say. And normally we will present it from easy to difficult, because you have to be quite, we call that scaffolding. We give them the basics first, and then slowly we build up their ability to understand and apply the information. And then at the higher level, they will analyze, evaluate, and create. This is a very old taxonomy from Bloom's. I am just showing you so that no need to worry too much. The idea is from easy to difficult, right? And what do we mean by easy to difficult? Lower order skills is really remembering very basic things. What are mammals? Okay, give me examples of mammals. So mammals are living things and give birth to young alive, for example. So they will be like cats, dogs.
Platypus.
That's an exception. The platypus is so difficult, right? An exception. Usually people thought they're not mammals. So these are like facts, and then you must apply, and then you have to like remember which are the exceptions. Some of them you think that they lay eggs, but actually they give birth to young alive. So it's really hard. So that's where you analyze, evaluate. It gets harder, higher order. So if you look at this example, steps to bake a cake. Number 1, you do these 2. Number 3, and then you must beat the cake, the eggs, and then you mix them together. These are like maybe remembering, understanding. I need to know what tools I need and what do I do. I know how to measure. But when you get into higher order, you need to teach the basics first. Calculation for maybe a 1 kg cake or half a kg cake requires this. Then they have to adapt, right? Like, okay, now I want to bake a larger cake, 3 kg, or a smaller cake, I need to adapt. If I don't have vanilla essence, I need to substitute. And what happens when my oven, I put 15 minutes, it's so dark, the cake is not correct, the color is incorrect, I have to adapt. And that's where application comes, and then they adapt their knowledge, and they will do this with more expertise over time. So this is an example of skills and how remembering is important in the beginning, but later on they will apply and it becomes something that they own because of their tools, preference for taste. So, and that's higher order. So if you look at a lot of chefs, they will actually provide substitute materials. They will tell you if your oven is very hot, then you want to lower down the time you are baking. So they actually know what are the potential mistakes. And in a higher order part, they will, at the last part, they will give them tips. So the tips will help, right? But still they have to put it into practice to learn.
Okay, just hang on a minute. If you can go back to that triangle. Just for the benefit of those that are listening on the audio, in case you have just joined on the audio, we are hosting a micro-learning specialist, Evon, Liu. And she is someone that recently came across my path through her husband, Ying Chua, the one who plays violin at the E7K meetings on Saturdays. And this is a timely message. So I want to encourage all of you to take note, especially of this taxonomy that was mentioned, the Bloom's taxonomy, where there is lower order thinking all the way up to the higher order thinking, symbolized by these different colors, the purple, the blue, the green, all the way up to the tip of the iceberg, if you like. The tip of the iceberg being the ways in which we take information, knowledge that we learn, and we can create brand new things. And in this particular episode where you're learning, we are, as a cohort, we are actually in the midst of preparing the college for opening in October, for the October to December launch, the initial launch of this online college. And we're taking the next 2 months, August and September, to actually build this online college. I think it's important. It's really significant that we can apply the lessons from micro-learning that Evon is sharing into the context of the kingdom context and even in the local church context, so that we can actually have micro churches and micro specialists. We can have an entire Bible college in your pocket, in the cell group, in the actual family. And I think that is why we are doing and why we are listening to this session, and why we are, all of us are so fascinated by the potential of micro learning in churches as we break out of and as we pivot out of this post-COVID situation. I think we've all gone through the last 2.5 years through this aspect of the Zoom aspect of it. But I think this is really the next level. And I know for some of the pastors, they're coming in from Pakistan all the way to Philippines. And this all may seem very, very new and cutting edge. But I promise you, if you stay in the program, and I just want you to know that we are really at the cutting edge of what the Lord Jesus is doing in the midst of us right now. So back to Evon, back to Bloom's, and please take it away. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Bloom's, if you look at lower order thinking, we usually give them some concepts or frameworks or a piece of definition, and then we start to ask them to apply. As we move into application, I would say that very often, if it's skills-based, it will be situations are provided. But if you look at medicine and healthcare, sometimes the application we cannot do online, like how to bathe a baby, how to operate on a person, that one needs to be offline, isn't it? But the beginning, you can do that. And as much as you can stretch it, you can stretch applications online by giving them different scenarios. For example, in healthcare or medicine, you can still do that. Like you give them symptoms. If I have these symptoms and I keep coughing and maybe someone has blood when they cough, what should they do? What would you suspect? So that's an idea of application. So what illnesses potentially this person could have, and you need to check. So I'm just using this as an example. I'm not a medicine expert, but if you look at baking, is the same, isn't it? I know how to do. I learn, I watch a video online, I know how to do, then I practice. And at the end, at the tip here, creating, it will be, if I learn how to bake chiffon cake, I can adapt and I can create many versions of chiffon cake. Orange, pandan. I can even experiment maybe with a bit of cream, and I can create something unique because I have learned that knowledge and ability or skills to do this. And that's where the higher order thinking comes in, where I need to evaluate. If I use pandan, it's wet, it's juice. And then how do I change it so that my cake still remain fluffy and soft? So from the basics to the higher order thinking, I think in different contexts may look different. For example, in mission field, it will look different. In theology, it looks different, but the idea is building blocks and scaffolding to let them reach a stage of independence to be able to create new knowledge. For some types of training, we don't need that, and we may stop at the green bar, which is, I'm just happy if they're able to do some basic application. And I think I don't need to stretch them to creating new things. So depending on the topic, it's different, right? So like baking a cake, I will just teach them to apply and I'm happy, right? That's my job as a teacher. So what I've done was to share the different aspects of microlearning, the nature of it, and why microlearning is designed sometimes with many considerations like chunking, repetition. Why do they have bite size? Why the bite size? And what is nudging to get people to continue and to be self-directed to learn? All right. So that's a little bit for you to also ponder then. How do you then design this for your specific stakeholder groups, your learner groups? The next part here, are you all good? We'll just go and complete this very basic understanding of what is a platform. By platform, I mean LMS, which is learning management systems that will host your content online. So if you look at a platform, it must be able to accept content of different types. In microlearning, market practice or good practices, you will see that each unit is about 5 to 10 minutes long. I think you saw the one from Coursera that I'm taking by Meta. It's about a page long and it's about 10 minutes with a little bit of activity because I'm learning a bit of coding. Typically, that's how it's like because of the working memory that we said earlier. And it may cover only one learning objective, one big learning objective with about 8 key learning points, because we can only hold 7 to 8 things in our short-term memory for a while. So one learning objective maybe is to teach you how to bake a cake, and then maybe eight things that I really want you to remember if you can, the steps plus something else. So if you look at the types of content, it could be podcasts, they could be videos, they could be PDF format, flip books, PowerPoint. There are many ways to do this as long as they make sense when you organize it in chunks. I would show a demo, very quick demo, to show you a flavor of what the platform looks like. And then quizzes, again, here is to reinforce and repeat what they have learned to them, and by answering questions, not so much to score them. But if you look at education, at the end of the year, we have a major exam, and that's what we call summative exam. That's different. We want to score and we want to sort the students by their scores. Singapore education system is moving away from too many exams. So if you look at primary 1, that's like for age 7 to 8. They don't have exams in primary 1. They have a lot of short assessments, which is to assess their knowledge, what they have learned, and also to then repeat, right, certain things again and again, small assessment to help them to learn. There's no major exams. We are moving towards that direction in Singapore. It's a big journey. It's hard because we are so used to exams. But the idea is really to use quizzes to reinforce learning, not so much to get a score so that you sort people. And they can be reinforced through on-the-job coaching or hearing from a mentor who is experienced in the field. They can do that. It can be reinforced. So that's what I showed you earlier. And there are many platforms in the marketplace. A lot of the models on the right, these are used like Canvas is used by universities. A lot of the universities use Canvas. They are paid by active users that you have on the platform. Some of these like Exonify, Tavuti, they have very good group user management, whereby they have advanced features for you to present their scores by leaderboards, and it's exciting. There's some gamification, like Exonify has got gamification, and Docebo. Some of these are used by the big organizations. So the charges, because it's by per active user, this pricing plan can be costly if you have a lot of learners on your platform. If you want to experiment and do a probe whether micro-learning is feasible, then on the left, there are platforms that is unlimited. Like if you have a pro plan on Thinkific, it is unlimited number of users that can use. They have less features than the big boys or the others on the right, but they have enough features that are pretty well designed as well. So I'm using them for a couple of small, medium enterprises, SMEs. They have about a couple of hundred. They have a lot of factory workers, for example, a couple of hundreds, and it may be suitable to be putting them on this to try out micro-learning, whether it works, because we are experimenting in an agile way. And even when we are experimenting, we may not want to spend and invest too much in technology. Very often, good to have enough to experiment and learn from the experience is more important than a very sophisticated tool right from the beginning. And there are open source LMS in the marketplace where you need to have your own server. So if you see the left and right, some of these are like LearnWorld, Thinkific, Zonify, Canvas, Tavuti, they are all what we call cloud system. They have the server and your content will be on their cloud. On their cloud, meaning that you don't need to worry about space. You will store everything online on the platform, and you pay them that subscription fee. And for LearnWorld, Thinkific, they have good plans that allow you to have unlimited users on the platform with a reasonable rate, very good reasonable rates. Moodle and Talent LMS, for some organizations, they are confidential. The training is confidential. They are very particular. So they actually want to have their own server and their own design of how their LMS will look like. So open source, meaning that they can take the codes and build this in-house, and you need some tech guys to run this. So this will be like 4 questions when you set up a LMS. Do you want it in a singular program, meaning that it's sequential? When I say one singular program, you have to take module 1, then you go to module 2, then you go to module 3. That's sequential, right? Or is it modular? I have 10. As long as you complete 10, you get my certificate. But I can complete the 10 any way I want at any time. I can do 2 first, and then I will take another 2 later on, and the sequence do not matter. So these are some thoughts around how you want to set up. So when we go into learning management system, the first thing is modular versus sequential. Think about that. The other thing will be cohorts. When we are enrolling people, remember I talk about learner engagement. That's the social aspect. Do you want them to belong to a group, a cohort that can meet in the 3 years? They are a community, they will meet, and they will meet online. Those are questions. Or you want it to be a public cohort. There's no class, anyone can join and you facilitate, right? That's a very, what we call open platform. Most of the what we call MOOCs or online learning like Coursera, they have cohort, but we do not know each other. We're just in there to learn. We don't meet a class. But a cohort has its advantages. And then, of course, English, the LMS usually will support English. And the native language, like common native language, they will support. Like Philippines will be probably Tagalog, will be the one that they support, but probably not dialects. So you have to check whether the LMS supports the languages, meaning that they auto translate, or you have to just put your content in, for example, Tagalog, or put your content in a native language like Mandarin, Chinese. But the native environment is still in English, right? For Thinkific, they can have native language display, but you'd have to have multiple paid accounts to do that. That means I will pay for, this is more for Gerard, like a pro plan, then it will all be in English. I can have another pro plan if I want a separate language that is in Mandarin or Chinese. But if English is the universal language, then that's no concern. Another way is the content can be in a local language like Chinese, but the environment like next, completed, these are in English. So when I was doing rollout, I had to consider this, and very hard to do this unless you have the resources to do translation and etc. etc. So that's a consideration. And lastly, of course, when you are running an online school, it's very similar to an offline school. You will have your content creators, your administrators who will be administrating the learning platform, and then the actual facilitators if you do want them to meet occasionally. So these are questions that I park here for you to consider and
I think
evaluate.
I think also, Evon, we have been thinking about, I've been thinking specifically about the capstone or the cornerstone project right at the end, because there's a lot of passive, seems to me, a lot of passive learning, that's going on, watching a video or listening to a podcast or doing a pop quiz or something like that, which is fine. But at some point in time, I'm just thinking out loud here, and I think also India, Thailand, Philippines, we need to think through this carefully, because let's say we have a student, let's say from India, from where Sujit is from, let's say Orissa. Can the software support a Oriya version of the college where the graduating student actually owns or is willing to be a course administrator as part of his final examination and show progress in creating a digital municipality among Oriya speakers, of which we are talking about millions, so could a user, a student, a graduate of ours after 2 years or even after 1 year, who is computer savvy, staying in Valenzuela, let's say, for example, where Nazel is, and could this person create something in Tagalog or Taglish, a combination of Tagalog and English, to reach deep, to penetrate deep into the hinterland, the digital hinterland of Manila and National Capital Region, with a similar, Coursera or Thinkific or whatever, to reach deep into the neighborhoods where they are targeting. The slums, they call it, what do they call the slums? What the politically correct name? I can't remember what it was. They were calling it informal settlers. They call it informal settlers. We used to have slums in Singapore, by the way. You would be suddenly driving by, and then there's a row of trees that the government planted, and behind that there was like a kampong, a village, and it was really funny because as the country progressed, you could see out of the atap house, there was suddenly a satellite dish or something like that. And people wanted technology. People were hungry for new ways of learning and receiving information. And I think this is the question, whether the software actually exists already to support specific language outreaches that we intend to reach the whole of Southeast Asia. The catchphrase is redeem the wastelands of Asia, the digital wastelands of Asia. How can the software, is it possible now, or are we waiting for something to come?
The
Evon?
software, for Thinkific, for example, all software can handle, but Thinkific, the one that I'm using right now, it allows you to produce content in native language. What you see is what you get. For example, you cut and paste and it's in Mandarin or in Nepali or in different languages. What you see is what you get. It will be displayed as it is. The part about the native environment, meaning that, when you click next and complete and all those, if you want it to be in local language, they support up to a certain number of languages. It's on their website, so you need to check. I can't offhand remember because there are many different languages, right? And sometimes my thoughts was that there are dialects as well, so I'm not sure they support that. I think they support the official national language, but some countries they do not have, like Nepal. So it was like But we can discuss it more offline. They do support the content in different languages because it's like a web, so it's auto capture and it will just display what you put on the website. I wouldn't go into this. I've already talked about this, about motivation. People have prior experience. So the nice thing is to gather them to talk about their prior experience. And I'm just going to hop on to the learning management system, and I will show you some of these in a very basic LMS. They will let you have media management, your content, how to host them. They have learner management, which is the user groups. You want to see the progress. For example, you want a cohort, right? Like all of us are in a cohort 1. You want to group and see cohort 1's progress of different students, because we learn at different speed. And then assessment, if there are quizzes, we want to be able to see the scores for the cohort. Progress matrix in general. Mobile adaptability, this is very important. Very often, if a platform can be accessed on a laptop, may not definitely display the thing properly on a mobile phone. So we actually have to test and see that they have mobile adaptability. And this mobile adaptability has to be really tested because different countries use different generations of handphone. So they may build mobile adaptability for 1 generation, 2 generation, and they call themselves mobile adaptable. But the real mobile adaptability will then is like different handsets. The display is quite okay, we have to check. So the one way you only to check is just use some old handphones and test to make sure that the claim is correct. Because if we're talking about rural areas without laptops, people with no laptops, but they definitely have mobile phones these days, then it has to be mobile adaptable.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anywhere in the world that a young person is not watching some video. I see even in Singapore, the construction workers during the break time, they're listening intently to some soap opera in their own country. And it's like, it's good in Singapore. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure in India, in Philippines, there's no way that there's no Wi-Fi. If there are young people, especially, we are all, the whole world has been addicted to social media. So yeah. If it's not available now, it definitely will be available sometime in the future. So let's all, everybody remember when we're, we're redeeming the digital wastelands, we may not, if it's not now, it's definitely in the future. And whatever that we're building now will definitely have relevance for the church of the future, on the kingdom penetration for the future. So let's keep an eye on that, and how can we once again, bring the Bible school into the home, bring the Bible school into the family, where the father, the mother can, or the head of the household can actually train up the child in the way that they should go with a full curriculum. So micro church doesn't mean it's not insignificant. It's actually having like Jesus with you, right? The whole wealth of learning church history, theology, systematic theology, biblical literacy, family literacy, right in the home, in the pocket, in the spaces at home, regardless of big government, regardless of interference, regardless of persecution or affliction, the afflicted church or persecuted church. And yet everything is, whatever that you need is all integrated in one small package, and it's completely available 24/7 by 365. So I think, this is a stimulating conversation, and it's a conversation, it's a futurist type of a conversation. Not everybody is going to be so interested right at the cutting forefront, but there will be early adopters. And I really see I really thank all of the regents of the college, Sujit in India and Dr. Prisha in Thailand, and all of our Filipino colleagues in Manila, all across Philippines and Malaysia, to Pakistan as well. So we want to ride this wave. We believe that the Holy Spirit is bringing this wave of revival through micro learning like never before. And the technology has not been as ubiquitous as before, but now is that time. And we need to prepare for the next 10, 20 years. So we need to get the absolute best software available, the fastest software available, and mobile adaptability is definitely part of that. Thanks, Evon. Is there anything in terms of questions as we sort of come to the end? I would like to propose to have Evon to come back. I don't know how it's going to happen, but for you to come back at some stage or to work together somehow or other. But this is really the future. Any questions from anyone?
Do they want to see a quick flick of the user experience of Thinkific?
Yes, definitely.
Maybe I just show that so they can visualize and take that away to digest a little bit. A very quick one. I will just show
Take your time.
A user experience like. This is a mock. It's not real. I just use a mock with a free account. To a user, there are many things that we can build inside, but imagine this is my company and I want to teach converse and persuade with confidence. So I will start with something like this, a welcome message. I invite people to share their expectations, and I can have things like this in my slides. Now,
let's start with the 3 V's in topic 1.
This is not the most exciting video. I'm showing you very basic technology with PowerPoint. And in Thinkific, you can just upload your slides. There is an audio recorder, and you can do this.
There are 3 important components in conversations. 1, visual communication. 2, vocal communication. And 3, verbal communication, referring to what we say and the choice of words.
So I did this very quick recording, 2 seconds, on Thinkific administrator platform. And it allows me to just upload my PowerPoint and talk through. But this is not ideal. Of course, if you have time and resources, you can do a real proper video. But if not, it looks like this, and you can record your voice along the PowerPoint. They have ability for you to put in images. A simple thing like a discussion board need not be elaborate. I'm talking about easy technology here, not pay through your nose for features, but be creative. So in this one, for cohort 1, I will have perhaps host the discussion on Google document. This platform allows me to embed a document in their platform, and it will display as I click on it. It auto pulls the Google shared document, and I can just get people to share. and I can still, as a facilitator, check on their progress. And then there are quizzes. The experience will look like that. Portraying positive body language. Okay, maybe I got it wrong. Then they will say the answer is incorrect and why. The answer should be A, C, D. I missed out one, right? So this is learning through assessment questions. Video, a real video from the YouTube. Of course, this we have to usually acknowledge the source. And of course, final assignment, you can create like a homework assignment for them to submit. And they will be able to submit their homework. Oops. Maybe I have a broken link, perhaps. Yeah. So that's to give you a feel of, from the user experience, that's what they see. But this is my administrator view. And in the administration view, right, I will be able to see a lot of things, from setup of courses to supporting the students who are the users, creating user lists. Like this, I can check progress reports. I'm on a free account, so I can't really see, but I can check progress reports, and it will show me, for example, cohort 2, how many percent they have completed. So they will show like Evon Liu, maybe 30%, something like that. We can issue certificates through the LMS. We can create and design new certificates, and you can just put this so they are happy after each unit. They can get a certificate. You can host discussion boards online. This is where you will see all the discussions come in. And when you open a discussion board as a facilitator, this is what you see. So I won't go into the details, but really briefly is to show you the different features in something like this. Requires administration. So there is actually work in admin to set up everything, and then it will auto run in between to check for progress reports. I think it's a bit of information. I hope it's not information overload. Are you good?
Yeah, I think it's just enough to whet the appetite. I would suggest that. Well, first of all, does anyone have any other questions for Evon while she's with us? Any questions about the software or about the concept of micro-learning? Thoughts on this? I know it's very, very new and it's cutting edge almost.